with all that cast iron and a heating element is shooting out wax. That's something out of the Inquisition. Welcome to Improv-ing Business on Web Talk Radio. I'm Brandon.
And this is Rick.
And today we'll be talking about finding the right business tools and having an interview with Plan Guru's Christian Weilage.
Have you purchased a business tool that just sat on the shelf?
Or even worse than that, are you having to use common tools like Excel to do complex jobs that it can't really handle? Because in my experience, a lot of business owners are completely willing to buy the right tools, but it's the implementation of these tools that actually is valuable to your company. Or as an employee, it's important to see the tools that your boss gives you are correctly implemented.
Later in this podcast, we will be discussing with Christian Weilage of Plan Guru how to use their tool in budgeting and planning process. But before getting into the analysis of business tools, we have a story about the wrong tool that was used back in the 1970s for leg waxing. In the 1970s, leg waxing wasn't nearly as big as what it is today. Today, you drive down the streets, you see many different salons that offer this service to women who want to have their legs waxed free of hair.
And men.
And men? Oh, and men. Okay.
Yep. Swimmers, especially.
Right.
That's actually a thing.
Yeah,
for drag.
Your brother never did it in water polo.
Not for the kind of drag you're thinking of, but it's water drag, as in the engineering term for fluid resistance.
As a way of background, when I was 16, 17 years old, I was a plumber's helper working in my stepfather's company where he had a partner named Dan. Now, Dan was about 6 feet tall, prematurely gray, prematurely white hair at about 35 years old, to the point that at times that people would upset him by thinking that my stepfather, who was about 10 years older than him, was actually his son. Now, Dan was very creative in the plumbing industry with different ways of doing things, but he decided to use his intelligence to go outside the plumbing industry, to look at what the needs were of certain people and to come up with an invention. The first place he started was with his wife. He saw her shaving her legs back in the 1970s, as I said, and noticed how cumbersome that was.
Was that with straight razors back then?
Yes, it was, straight razors.
Really?
But he also knew that somebody was applying wax to legs and pulling the hair off. But it was very hard to find back then, and it was a specialty that a lot of people didn't even understand. So Dan dug deep into his creativity and wanted to develop a product that you could apply wax on your legs to take the hair off. Now, there are other ways to do that today, as I looked on the internet, but they're very unmechanical. Sticks and tape in different ways, which the industry has developed to that. But back then, Dan decided to use a mechanical device that he was going to make with parts and tools that were at his disposal.
Plumbing tools, right? And this makes total sense to me, because a lot of plumbers' job is dealing with hair clogged in drains, right? Doing backup. So maybe he was just trying to get this problem out of the way so he wouldn't have to do as much work later. I mean, that's how I'm thinking anyway.
So as he was telling me about his idea in the truck that we're driving along, and I'm driving the truck being 16, and he's sitting back with his dirty overalls, white hair that doesn't look like it's very clean, smoking a cigar, I turned to him and said, "You are going to be the expert on cleanliness." And his reply to me was, "Well, I take a bath once a week, whether I need it or not."
I think that is a misquote, sort of a queen, one of the queen, I think Queen Elizabeth I, but I might be wrong, who said, "I take a bath once a year, whether I need it or not," which is a little But back then, they just sort of put, scented powders and such on and wore so many layers of clothes that you couldn't smell their body because it was like 30 feet away from you in petticoats.
So Dan decided to get to work, telling my stepfather, who was his plumber, that we're going to be rich. His first problem was having a container to hold wax. So he decided to use a piece of cast iron pipe. He also had to heat the wax up, and he was able to get some sort of heating element or coil made out of a metal box strapped or bolted to the bottom of it.
Don't they have heating coils like that to warm pipes in places that freeze over?
Now, I don't know. I've never lived back east, especially in the 1970s, if the technology was that far ahead.
Well, maybe they just ordered it from a catalog then. He just ordered it from a back east plumbing catalog.
So Dan had to then have something that would push the wax out the other end so that somebody can apply it.